Hello, wonderful. I am here with Zoe Parsons, and she's a narcissistic and domestic abuse life coach and counselor. Zoe, where are you located? I know you and I do not have the same accent. So,
No, thanks for having me. I'm from the UK, so I don't know what the weather's like where you are, but it's cold where I am.
so it is cold here, and I have lots of ladies in Florida, which is usually like a beach place, and they're all
Mm,
complaining and saying it's so, and I was like, they're talking about 60-degree weather, which is, I know we don't use the same weather systems, but it's not cold right there. Like,
no, I was gonna say 60 degrees sounds quite nice. That's like going around, you don't need your jacket and maybe just cardigan or something, right?
exactly. So anyway, well, I am sorry that it's cold. It's cold here too. We had snow this weekend, but I made little snowman pancakes for my kids. Like,
Oh, how
very
cute.
little
They must
pancakes,
love that.
yeah, with little bacon arms and that kind of stuff. So that's what I've been doing, in the quarantine. But Zoe, tell people about what you do. So many times it's the question like, are they a narcissist? Am I a narcissist? Like, and that's become such a buzzword. So why do you think it's become a buzzword?
I think in a way it's just easy, it's faddy to just kind of be with someone who's selfish and then just label them a narcissist because they haven't gone out and put the rubbish out or they've not done something that you want. But essentially narcissism is, it's a serious, I mean, to be diagnosed as a narcissist, it's a very specific criteria that you have to meet. It's you would only get diagnosed by a therapist. And I mean, the problem that we have with narcissism is because narcissists think they're perfect and that there's nothing wrong with them, they're never actually going to go generally to a therapist and get diagnosed. So unfortunately, we do have the issue. There are a lot of narcissistic people out there walking around undiagnosed. And obviously, the damage they do is horrendous. But just to break it down, narcissism is on a scale. So if you think about empathy, you take empathy and you've got it in a scale. And then along this scale, you've got traits. And we all have narcissistic traits. So there's all going to be times where we behave in a selfish manner, where we do something that upsets someone, or we do something that we don't like. But the differences between us and a narcissist is we will recognize that our behavior was unacceptable. We will take accountability and we will look to change. Whereas a narcissist will not, because they feel that they are right and that everything they do is okay. So, as I was saying, to be diagnosed as a narcissist, if you go back to this scale, you've essentially got 9 narcissistic traits. And to be diagnosed as a narcissist, you need to be displaying 5 or more consistently all the time, not dipping in and out of it. It's consistent behavior. And some of these traits are no empathy, grandiose, maybe they have superiority issues. They
That's I'm better, bigger, badder than everyone else, right?
exactly,
Yes.
exactly. It's kind of I'm right, you're wrong. Sometimes, they kind of have a bit of a God complex in as much as they have to be worshipped. They're also always will play the victim. So everything is always someone else's fault. They will never take any type of blame or responsibility for their behavior.
Which is why it's so important for people because they think, oh, okay. I think so that's the conversation around boundaries, right? That I
Mhm,
get like about because people are like, oh, I need to have better boundaries. And then if I say the right words, then they will then take responsibility for their behavior. Or if I just point out to them what they have done wrong, then they're going to be like, oh, you got me. Oh,
mm,
you figured it out. Okay, well, now things are going to be different. And it's like, that's not true, right? That doesn't work. And women or men can spend a whole lot of energy and time and
mhm.
years trying to get what really is just trying to get the other person to change, right?
Exactly. And the thing is, like, if you think about how hard it is to actually change yourself
Right.
and to take responsibility and accountability for your own behavior,
Mhm.
and often some of our own behaviors, they'll be ingrained habits. There are beliefs and our systems and our actions and everything that's ingrained and built into us from childhood, and trying to rewire our brains so that we behave differently for ourselves is really hard. So if you're trying to change someone who is completely resistant to the idea of change because they don't actually think that there's anything wrong with themselves, it's just never going to happen. And like you said, you're just going to be investing time and energy, and often we spend years trying to help change a narcissist or an abusive person or a toxic person, or however we're going to label them, right?
One of the way I say it, it's like, have you ever seen like karate? I've never done karate. But they had those boards, and like eventually, if
Mm,
you, like chop the board hard enough, it splits.
mm,
Right, the board changes, and I feel like toxic people. It's like if there's like a board, but then you have like this layer of like cement, or there's bricks and bricks and bricks. So you bang on the board, thinking eventually, if you get the right angle, get the right
mhm.
momentum, the board you can break the board or change the board. But really, there's like layers and layers and layers of cement under it. I mean,
Yeah,
it it's just very pointless work.
it is. And often what happens is we're the ones that end up broken from that
Our hands are
persistent,
broken and blood.
exactly, persistent trying to
Yeah.
change someone who doesn't want to be changed. And, you know, it's different. So you see, obviously we're talking about a toxic, abusive, narcissistic relationship. In a healthy relationship, it's different because you're going to be working alongside someone where you're equal and they want to change, and maybe they're asking for your support to help them change. So obviously that is a different scenario to when you're working or living or in a relationship, however it is, with a narcissist. It's like you will know from their behavior. So for instance, they'll say they're
Oh, whoa,
sorry.
I want to say, whoa, you will know from
Mhm.
their behavior,
Totally.
from their promises, not
Um,
from what they say, not from how they blame shift and make it all your fault. You will know. Because I mean, it's so funny because people say, well, how will I know they changed? I said, well, they'll actually change.
mhm.
It,
Exactly.
we make it so complicated, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, but he made promises or she made promises. So now I know they've changed. It's like, what? No, yeah, they'll change when they actually change. And if they
Mhm.
are changing, something's changing. And if they're not changing, that's data for you as well, right?
Exactly. And the thing is, to change, it takes time. So when someone is saying to you, I'm sorry, I'm going to change, and then nothing really happens, what that actually is a manipulation, because what it's done is it's caused you to change because maybe it stopped you from leaving, or maybe it stopped you from making a decision, a choice, or an action that you would have otherwise done before they said sorry and that they
So,
were going to change.
so maybe you were going to say, I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving.
Exactly.
Then they say, oh no, I'm changing. I'll go to therapy. I'll do this. I'll do that. Right. And you're saying that, and I agree, just pointing it out for our listeners, that that is a manipulation tactic to draw you back.
Totally. Totally.
Or they may play the victim, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
manipulation, how dare you leave me? Don't you know what I've been through? Don't you know how hard it is at work right now? Don't you know how hard it is for me to leave my wife, for my girlfriend, or whatever promises they're making, right?
Exactly. And the thing is, you will know from the time that you've spent with that person that essentially all what they're saying is just empty words, it's empty promises, it's not ever backed up by any type of solid action or change. And even if they say, oh, I've gone to the doctors, and it's because I'm violent, because I'm stressed and I've got depression, so I've gone to the doctors and I've got antidepressants. They might have that antidepressants, but I can guarantee you they won't be taking them, because it's
I agree
just
with her.
part of the tactics to keep you
No problem.
stuck. Yeah,
They're doing what they want. You're doing what they want.
that's
Why
right.
do they want to change this? This is a very good deal for them, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes, totally. I mean, the thing is, like, for them, it's much easier to stay and manipulate you because you're already
Trained.
and invested and believing and in love and trauma bonded and everything else that goes along with it. So it's much easier for them to say, oh, I'll do the therapy, or I'll do the couples counseling, or I'll go to the doctors and do kind of a partial sort of effort, but not really follow through on it properly, than it would be for them to necessarily start from scratch with someone else. But having said that, they will always have someone else lined up, because obviously with a narcissist, it's all about supply.
Yeah. So let's back up. Empathy, grandiose. Did we just get 2, or were there 3 things that you said from that list? I'm impressed you can like remember that list. Oh, playing
Yeah.
playing the victim. Okay. So what else?
Yeah, they'll be entitled. So they'll feel that everyone owes them, that, no job they do, they're not earning enough money, they're not getting enough credit. There'll always be some kind of problem because they feel entitled, but also because they feel entitled. Sorry?
It's always a problem when they don't get what they want.
Always a problem. And even when they do get what they want, they'll always say that they didn't get what they want, because it's like they're never happy. There's
Being in a relationship with them, we laugh about it now, but it's like, it's so confusing. It's like,
it is confusing.
I changed myself a million times. I tried to be better. I tried this. Is that what you hear people say?
Oh,
And
totally.
it's never enough. It's never enough. It's never enough.
No, never enough. I mean, I always say being in a relationship with someone this toxic is like, they are like identity thieves. They take everything from you, including who you are as a person. It's like you will end up, after being in that relationship, you won't know what makes you happy. You won't know what brings you joy. You won't know what clothes suit you. You will stop doing the stuff that used to bring you happiness, and you will just become a shell of the person that you were. And that's because a narcissist in particular will absorb and will take every single resource that you have. You have to remember that these people, they're like a bucket with a hole in it. And no matter how much you give them, you support them, you encourage them, whether it's money, whether it's, helping them with their studies, maybe it's helping them with their career, maybe it's emotional support, maybe it's just sex, whatever it is, to a narcissist, all of this is supply. And what you do is you're just constantly putting into a bucket with a hole in it, and you're never going to get a return. They're never going to be happy, and you're going to be exhausted.
Yes, because what I see women do, and then I have an article on this, and it's like, oh, the water in the bucket didn't work, so then I'll put tea in the bucket. Okay, the tea in the bucket didn't work, so then I'll put coffee in the bucket. Okay, the coffee in the bucket didn't work, so then I'll put tequila in the bucket. Oh, the tequila in the bucket didn't work, so I'm gonna put, that exhaustion of thinking how they are pouring inside the bucket, or what they are pouring inside the bucket is the problem, rather than seeing that there's a hole in the bottom of the bucket.
Exactly. And you will be made to feel that no matter what you're putting in that bucket, that it's never enough, that it's all your fault, that you need to be doing more. And you will work harder, longer, faster. You will go without sleep. You will deprive yourself of everything. Maybe it's food, maybe it's money, whatever it is, just to try and sustain this empty bucket.
And how many times have you seen that work?
Oh, it never works. I mean, it works for the narcissist because obviously they're able to get them, their main supply, their person they're with, providing them with all this stuff. And it's also why narcissists will triangulate, because they also need other people to give supply. Because the thing is, at the beginning of the relationship, you're high energy, you're not drained. You haven't been pouring into an empty bucket. So you're able to give much more. But as the relationship goes on, you're going to be more and more depleted, which means the narcissist is going to be getting less from you. So they are then going to need to go to other people and use other manipulation tactics, which is why you're going to end up getting new supply, why you're going to end up maybe online dating and cheating and texting and all of this type of thing, because essentially they need constant supply and you're getting tired, right?
Well, something I hear from women is, it's so unfair that he did this to me after all I gave him, after all I gave up for them. And I think that might be one of the most difficult things to wrap your head around. Is it was never enough. It never would have been enough. If you can't be better in a way to earn it being enough. Right? Is that what you've seen?
Totally. And the thing is, it's not your fault. It
Right.
wasn't because you failed, and it wasn't because you're
Right.
lacking, and it's not because you're not worthy, and it's not because you're not good enough. It is purely because they are empty and they will never be full. And once you realize that the person who you're investing all your time, energy, love, essentially your future, is just a black hole, and it's not you, and that when you find someone who doesn't have this emptiness within them and you behave in exactly the same way, you are going to find yourself in a happy, healthy relationship.
Yes. Okay. Yes. That's what I say, and I hate victim blaming, because I say, if you were good, kind, loving, giving, and forgiving, and you were with a healthy person, people would say you were a fabulous girlfriend, wife, daughter, sister, whatever. But if you're good, kind, loving, giving, and forgiving, and you're with a toxic personality, they call you codependent. Right?
Exactly. That's what they do call you, but it's not. It's because what we do, it's called reverse projection. So we will look at someone and we will put all our good qualities that we have, and we will assume that they're going to behave in the same way. So like you said, if we're honest, trustworthy, kind, forgiving, caring, loving, we will assume that the person we've gotten into a relationship with is also displaying and has those same qualities, especially when a toxic person or whoever will, during the dating phase, will mirror back to you everything you want to be hearing and everything you want to be seeing, and they'll love bomb you. So you'll get bamboozled by all of these amazing kind of feelings, and because this person is mirroring all your good qualities back to you, you think they're great and you think they're amazing. But the problem is often this behavior happens within a very short space of time when we're dating, and that's how you know that in itself is a red flag, and that this is possibly a toxic relationship that we're winding ourselves up into, purely because there hasn't been enough time for that person to truly demonstrate that what they're saying, that their actions match. And the only way you can get to that point is if you give yourself time during that dating process. But often with a narcissistic person, is by the time you're at the end of month one, they've already told you they love you and they want to marry you, and they've essentially moved in.
Well, and something I hear from a lot of my good, kind, loving, giving, and forgiving women is, I'm the type of person who's all in. I'm the type of person who's serious about relationships. I'm the type of person. So I think we have to change our identity to I am serious about the right relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm loyal to myself. I'm not just loyal to this person I've known for a month. But we tell
Exactly.
ourselves that's a good quality. And again, it's a great quality if it's not being flipped against you
Mm-hmm.
by a toxic person or a narcissist. But it's that it goes, you talked about the reverse mirroring, reverse projecting. And I
Yeah.
call it, we only see from our own perspective.
Mm-hmm.
If you're good, kind, loving, giving, and forgiving, you expect others to be good, kind, loving, giving, and forgiving back.
Exactly. And it's often that viewpoint that we have will be one of the reasons why we get stuck in these toxic relationships so long, because we find it so hard to believe that, one, these type of people exist, and two, when someone is telling us they love us, those three magic words, you know, we kind of will forgive anything because
Love conquers
we
all.
think exactly.
All you need is love. Like we hear this, you know, and as a
Mm.
society, we say that's enough. So I was working out this morning and watching a show, which I will not tell the name of the show because I do respect the writer and stuff. But there was somebody and there was a doctor and she was working on a patient, and the patient, she ends up meeting his husband in this other area, right? So she's got this doctor patient, and the patient is on bed rest. And then the doctor met the other doctor somewhere else. And he's like, you know, I know we've never been on a date and we've never, you know, really even seen each other outside the fact that you're my wife's doctor, but I've never felt about anybody like I do about you. You know, it's like, I've never loved anyone. It's like, they haven't even been out. Like, they haven't even been on a date. Like, they haven't known each other a long time. This isn't somebody he's worked with for 10 years and then like said that, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, it's just craziness. But our stories enforce that. And so then it's like, oh, this is the real thing. God finally brought to me. The universe brought to
Mm-hmm.
me. I attracted the right, but it ends up creating horrible messes in people's lives, right?
It really does. And the thing is, like, we will often go into dating not even clear on what we want from a relationship. We will think that just because they're a man,
We
they're
want to be
tall,
chosen, right? That's what's so
but
dangerous. Yes,
exactly.
all I want is to be chosen.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a dangerous place to be coming from, because if you're going to be going out there with all that needy energy,
Yes.
wanting to be externally validated by a man, to be made to feel worthy, made to be feel loved, made to feel that you are enough, you are allowing yourself, or you will be taken advantage of by these predatory, toxic people, because they are out there. And the one thing with narcissistic people is they don't have empathy, but they, in my experience, they are very aware and intelligent at reading people.
Absolutely.
So you will find that you will end up in a relationship with someone and you'll be like, wow, they're so aware of feelings and people, and they seem to understand human nature. And you might think that's an amazing quality. And yes, it is, if the person is also empathetic and kind. But because narcissists don't have empathy and they don't feel any type of care, sorrow, or any type of real feelings, what they've had to do is they have to learn how to mimic these behaviors, which is why they get really good at reading people. And it's not just other people they're reading, it's also you. So in the beginning of the relationship, when you're telling this person everything that you've never told anyone before,
Or
and
they
you're
tell you,
going,
I've never told anyone this before. That's always a red flag, right? If someone,
boy,
I got abused as an 8-year-old, I've never told anybody. It's like, what? We've known each other 3 weeks. You're telling me this? Like, that is what they are doing, is creating vulnerable
that's
situations,
right.
speed up the process where it feels like you're closer than you really are.
Exactly. And if they're sharing, then you're sharing.
Exactly.
And
Tell them something they can use against you.
yeah, oh yeah, guaranteed. I mean, you have to remember, with a toxic person, everything you tell them in the beginning, towards the middle to the end of the relationship, all of this is going to be used as ammunition against you, and it's going to be twisted and distorted, and you're going to make to feel shamed and that you've done something wrong. just by something you've done in your past.
So important. So why are people this way? I would love your opinion on that. I have lots of experts theories, and I'm always formulating my own. So why are people this way?
So yeah, I mean, how I believe it to be is that it's basically formed these behaviors. It's a personality disorder. So it's not a mental disorder. And I think that's important to distinguish, because like a mental disorder, such as someone with BPD, might have similar behaviors, but they can change. And with medication and the right support, you can have a healthy relationship with someone with that. But with narcissistic personality disorder, it's different. There is no medication that's going to help them, and it's because it's how the brain has developed, and this brain has developed this way from childhood, and it's normally one of two things. So it's either because they've experienced some kind of abuse or trauma within their childhood and they haven't received the right type of help to be able to heal and move on, or it's because they've been spoiled, and that spoiling has grown them to be entitled, to have this superiority complex. They've been grown with no boundaries. They've been given everything they want. And sometimes you see it with children, like you'll maybe see a child playing with a toy, and then another child comes along and wants to play with the toy, and then they won't let that child play with the toy, and then they'll leave and they'll discard the toy, right? And then someone else will come, the child will come to play with that toy, and then they'll go back and try and grab that toy off that child, even to the point that they don't want that other child to play with the toy. They'll break the toy because they're that kind of, this is mine, I'm controlling this. If I can't have it, you can't have it. And essentially, that is kind of the mindset of a narcissist. You just have to think that a narcissist is really a child, an undeveloped child in a grown-up's body. And how they behave will be childish. It will be spiteful. It will be spoiled. It will be entitled. It will be unbearable to live with, you know?
You use that example because I talk about something as simple as taking turns. And if you are with someone who doesn't know how to take turns, that's something they have been taught since they were 3 or 4 years old. Maybe their parents aren't teaching them that, but they've been in school structures around other kids or in somewhere in society. They should be learning how to take turns. And so if they're 44 and don't know how to take turns, and you think you can like love them right, or love them enough through that, that's very different. I love that you said the mental disorder versus personality disorder, because I know it can seem cruel or mean. It's like, oh, but if it's a mental disorder, they need help. They need my support. I wouldn't leave them if they had cancer. So how can I leave them if they have this? But what you pointed out was it's a very different conversation, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And essentially, it comes down to the person that you're with. And I think one way that you're going to know is if you're with someone with a narcissistic personality disorder or someone with high traits, say someone who's toxic, is by how they behave. So when they treat you differently at home to when they treat you differently in public, that shows to you that, one, they have control, and two, they are making a choice. They are choosing, and they know what they're doing. Exactly. They are choosing to behave differently in public to at home. So they know.
Yeah.
Sorry?
They're going to get caught.
Exactly.
They know behave well when they're going to get caught. If there's a cop right there, are they screaming and calling you a BTI bitch and saying this stuff? No. Are they throwing things around? Are they saying ugly things when there's other people around? No. So then, yes, they can control it, and yes, they know what they're doing. I think that's a great point.
Exactly, which means that you saying, oh, I'll stay because I want to help them to change, is like going to happen because they know what they're doing and they're making an active choice to behave how they're behaving. And there's nothing you can do to change this person and make them behave any differently, because ultimately they like how they behave benefits them, and it serves them. So why would they want to change when they can be with someone who essentially is giving them everything for virtually no investment? I mean, it's,
So yeah.
if you was to look at it as a stock exchange and like a return and as a money thing, it's like, would you invest in this type of financial return when you look at most of the time when we're in these types of relationships, we end up in deficit in every single avenue. You know, we come out of these relationships with debt, with, you know, PTSD, with nightmares, panic attacks, with illnesses, with traumatized children. Because, I mean, don't forget they're children that are watching and also being damaged by these, you know, relationships, these people. And we've put in everything.
And I
It's
think
not a great return.
it's a horrible return. And that's also helpful in knowing if you were the toxic one or if it was really them, because they're going to blame shift and make it seem like your fault. Like, well, who was the one doing all the giving? Who was the one making all the sacrifices? Who was the one getting the better end of the deal? That's usually, people can see that, right?
That's right.
And that can be helpful if somebody's listening and they say, you know, he said she's toxic. She said he was toxic. They both said the other person's narcissist. Like, how do I know who's telling the truth? And I say, well, who is getting the better end of the deal of the relationship? It's usually easy to see.
Totally. And I mean, what I do with my clients is I'll say to them, start making a list, you know, start journaling so that you can start to be grounded in reality. Because obviously when you're dealing with someone who's toxic, they're going to lie, they're going to gaslight, they're going to manipulate. You're not going to know what is up, what is down, what is left, what is right. And the longer you're in that relationship, the more confusing it's going to become, until you do reach the point that you do feel that everything is your fault. And even on some level, you will end up feeling that you deserve to be with that person because you're so awful anyway.
Time does not heal all wounds when it comes to a toxic person. And the longer you give them, I just do want to affirm. I know it's hard to hear if you're listening to this. There's just so little to no success stories in this arena, as far as like, I stuck around, I gave it another 30 years and then they finally got better, right? It's just not something we see. Zoe, I loved our conversation. Any last minute words of wisdom that you're just like, oh, I wish the whole world knew? What do you wish the whole world knew that you do, Miss Zoe Parsons?
Oh, I tell you what, I just wish people understood that being in an abusive relationship doesn't have to be physical, that it always starts off with the emotional manipulation, the making you feel that you're confused, that you're worthless. If you feel that you can't speak freely, that you can't talk about your feelings without there being some kind of blowback, if you're on the receiving end of silent treatment, if you're not allowed to sleep, or if someone is controlling what you eat under the guise of, I'm really concerned about your health and I want to help you get the body you've always wanted, when you've been perfectly happy with the body you always had, but really it's the body that they want you to have.
Yes.
It's a controlling relationship, and a healthy relationship does not have any element of control in it. A healthy relationship is about equality and respect, and this means that you're coming in together as equal partners, and you're both bringing stuff to the table, you're both contributing equally, and you're both taking from the relationship equally. There's not anything one-sided about it where you feel like you're drained and exhausted. And you don't have to have been on the receiving end of physical abuse for your relationship to be abusive.
Well, thank you so much, Zoe. Where can people find more about you and your loveliness? Where can people find more Zoe?
So you can connect with me. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, everywhere. My practice is called Self-Love After Abuse, because what I found is, especially in my own healing journey, is self-love is so important, and it really starts there with that. And self-love is way more than just a bubble bath. Self-love is going and getting the therapy and doing the work.
Okay, now you're talking about my other pet peeve, right? And it's like when people think, okay, self-love is only affirmations or self-love. And I think about it now as self-love is investing in my future, right? And I've got my nails done. I love, these are some new earrings, right? But that's pretty small potatoes. There's a term, small potatoes, when it's like, oh, I'm self-care. I'm, even getting up. Well, I won't say that, but just thinking as if the only option for self-care is the spa or a shopping trip. That is very low level. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not bad, right? It's not bad to buy new clothes. It's not bad to get your nails done, right? And real self-love and self-care is saying, I'm going to follow through on myself. I'm going to in myself. I'm going to create a future for myself.
Definitely. It's looking at your mental and your emotional well-being and doing what needs to be done to make sure that that is cared for. Same way you would for, like you say, your nails, facial manicure, bubble bath, whatever it is. That's the external stuff. But it's like, what are you doing for your internal healing and growth? Because obviously once you've healed from having been in an abusive relationship, you want to make sure that you're growing and that you're getting to a place where you can be, if it's your choice, be in a happy, healthy relationship. So it's like, have you educated yourself? Do you even know what that looks like? Because what I find with my clients especially is most don't even know what a healthy relationship looks like. So
with
how can you be in one?
Or right?
Exactly.
With themselves or others.
Yeah. And you have to get comfortable with being by yourself and taking yourself on dates and
that too.
and exactly, and just accepting that you're not lonely because you're with yourself and yourself is enough and you provide enough care and nurturing for yourself that you don't need someone to do it, but you choose to have someone.
And then you get to choose who to be with, not need someone to choose you.
Exactly.
Awesome. Zoe, thank you so much for coming with us on our journey to becoming toxic person proof.
Thank you.